Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. You know, we all have those moments. You think you have a great idea, you're super excited, you're like, this is it, this is the one. And then, it just completely, totally, epically faceplants. We've all been there. Maybe it was that haircut in high school, or trying to bake a cake from scratch without a recipe. It happens. Well, tonight we're going to look at some of the biggest faceplants in history. We're talking about ideas that were so confident, so hyped up, and then just, nope. We're counting down the 10 most ill-considered and spectacularly unsuccessful things ever. These aren't just little mistakes. These are massive, multi-million-dollar, history-changing blunders. Alright, kicking off our list at number 10 is a real classic, a legend in the world of failure. We're talking about the Ford Edsel. In the 1950s, Ford was on top of the world. They wanted a revolutionary car to beat General Motors. They poured, and I mean poured, money into this thing. $250 million back then. Billions today. Years of market research, or so they thought. The hype was insane. Teaser ads showed only parts, building mystery. They called it the car of the future. People expected a spaceship on wheels. Ford forced dealerships to order cars before anyone had seen it. It was supposed to be the next Model T. Then came E-Day, 1957. Curtains pulled back for the big reveal. And the reaction was, a collective huh? The design was controversial, especially the front grille. Some thought it looked like an Oldsmobile sucking a lemon. Others said it looked like a toilet seat. Awkward doesn't cover it, but the problems went beyond looks. Rushed production ruined quality. Features were promised but didn't work. Buttons would stick. The trunk wouldn't open. The engine would overheat. A mechanical nightmare. It was expensive and it guzzled gas. Right as the country slid toward recession and buyers wanted efficient cars. Wrong car, wrong price, wrong time. Ford lost about $350 million then, over $3.5 billion today. They pulled the plug after only 3 years. The Edsel became the poster child for marketing flops. Taught in business schools. All the money and hype couldn't save a bad product. What a mess. Coming in at number 9, we have a story about what happens when you try to fix something that isn't broken. I'm talking about the infamous New Coke. In the early 1980s, Coca-Cola was getting a little nervous. Their biggest rival, Pepsi, was gaining on them with the Pepsi Challenge, those blind taste tests where people kept picking Pepsi. So Coke's executives got paranoid. They thought, our formula is old. We need something new, something sweeter. So in secret, they developed a new formula. They did over 200,000 taste tests of their own. The results were clear. People preferred the new, sweeter taste. Old Coke, Pepsi. The numbers looked great. On April 23, 1985, they made a shocking announcement. They were discontinuing their original 99-year-old formula and replacing it entirely with this new Coke. The public reaction was immediate and furious. People felt betrayed. This wasn't just a soda. This was an American icon. The company's headquarters was flooded with thousands of angry phone calls and letters a day. People were hoarding cases of the original Coke like it was the apocalypse. Protest groups like the Old Cola Drinkers of America held rallies. It was a total PR nightmare. A psychiatrist said callers sounded like they were discussing the death of a family member. It was that serious. People weren't just mad about the taste, they were mad that a corporation had taken away a piece of their childhood. Coca-Cola's market research had completely, totally missed that emotional connection. Just 79 days after launching New Coke, the company held another press conference. They caved. They announced they were bringing back the original formula as Coca-Cola Classic. The news led evening broadcasts, and people celebrated in the streets. New Coke fizzled out within a few years, while Coca-Cola Classic went on to greater success. It's the ultimate lesson. A brand is about emotion and memory. Let's get into it. Okay, our number 8 spot goes to a piece of tech that was supposed to change everything but ended up being, well, just really awkward. Let's talk about Google Glass. Back in 2012, Google unveiled this thing with a huge amount of fanfare. It was a wearable computer in the shape of eyeglasses. It had a tiny screen that would show you notifications, give you directions, take photos, take videos just by winking or talking to it. It was straight out of a sci-fi movie. The hype was off the charts. Google released this concept video, skydiving, playing with their kids, riding a roller coaster, all while using Google Glass to record and share their experience. It looked like the future of how we would interact with the world and with each other. Tech journalists went wild. The first people to get them were called explorers, and they had to pay $1,500 for the privilege. They were seen as pioneers of a new technological frontier. But then, a funny thing happened when Google Glass got out into the real world. It turned out most people didn't want someone talking to their face and secretly recording them. The device quickly got a reputation for being creepy. People wearing them were nicknamed, and not kindly, glassholes. Concerns about privacy were huge. Bars and restaurants started banning them. Instead of looking cool and futuristic, wearers just looked strange and invasive. And the device itself was kind of a letdown. The battery life was terrible, it would overheat, and the voice commands were clunky. It wasn't the seamless, intuitive experience the promo video had promised. It was a solution in search of a problem. Do I really need my text messages floating in the corner of my eye while I'm trying to have a conversation? For most people, the answer was a resounding no. It was just too much, too soon. Google eventually stopped selling the consumer version in 2015. While the tech has found niche uses in manufacturing and healthcare, the dream of glass as the next smartphone was dead. It's a classic example of being excited about what tech can do and forgetting to ask if anyone wants it to do that. It was a fascinating experiment, but a massive commercial flop. Get ready for this one, because it's a jaw-dropper. At number 7, we have what might be the single worst business decision of the 21st century. I'm talking about the time Blockbuster Video had the chance to buy Netflix. Yes, you heard me right. Let's set the scene. It's the year 2000. Blockbuster is a giant, a behemoth. They have 9,000 stores worldwide. It's Friday night. You want a movie? You go to Blockbuster. That's just what you did. Meanwhile, there was this tiny, struggling startup called Netflix. They had this quirky business model of mailing DVDs to people in little red envelopes. No late fees. It was a cool idea, but they were losing money. So the founder of Netflix, Reed Hastings, flew to Dallas to meet with the CEO of Blockbuster, John Antioco. Hastings made a proposal. Blockbuster should buy Netflix for $50 million. Netflix would then run Blockbuster's online brand. They would be partners. Now, $50 million sounds like a lot, but for a company the size of Blockbuster, it was pocket change. It was a rounding error. So, what did the Blockbuster CEO do? He practically laughed them out of the room. According to Reed Hastings, the Blockbuster executives struggled to not laugh out loud at their offer. They saw Netflix's mail-order business as a tiny niche market that would never amount to anything. They were the kings and they didn't need some little internet company, so Blockbuster passed. They sent Reed Hastings packing and went back to their business of renting out physical tapes, DVDs, and, most importantly, charging those infuriating late fees. That was a huge part of their revenue. They couldn't see a world without them. They were so focused on their existing successful model that they were completely blind to the massive shift that was about to happen in how we consume media. They were steering the Titanic, and they saw the iceberg but thought it was just a little ice cube. We all know what happened next. Netflix kept growing. They introduced streaming in 2007, and that changed everything. Blockbuster tried to compete with their own online service, but it was too little, too late. Their stores started closing one by one. By 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. Today there is exactly one Blockbuster store left in the entire world, in Bend, Oregon. Meanwhile, Netflix is a global entertainment superpower worth hundreds of billions of dollars. That $50 million decision has to be one of the biggest oops moments in business history. Coming in at number 6, way more famous for its movie role than for actual road performance, DeLorean DMC-12. Even if you don't know cars, you know this car. Time machine from Back to the Future. Iconic gull-wing doors, stainless steel body, it looks like nothing else. One of the coolest looking cars ever made, period. The dream of one man, John DeLorean, rock star GM exec who left to start his own company. He wanted an ethical sports car, safe, long-lasting, stylish. Designed by Giorgetto Giugiaro, stunning. Unpainted stainless panels, equal sign, no rust, those doors make a statement. You arrive anywhere and you've made a statement. The hype was real. The problem was everything else. DeLorean made a deal with the British government, built a factory in Northern Ireland, troubled area, plagued with production delays and quality control issues. Workforce inexperienced cars off the line were poorly made. Gull-wing doors often got stuck, trapping people or refusing to close. Electrical systems were a mess. And then there was the performance. Looked like a supercar drove like, not a supercar. V6 co-developed by Peugeot, Renault, and Volvo. Underpowered, 0 to 60 in about 10.5 seconds, slower than many sedans. Body of a Ferrari, heart of a station wagon, all show, no go. Priced against Porsche's Corvettes that left it behind. Company burned through cash fast. DeLorean caught in an FBI sting over a cocaine deal, later acquitted, but company was doomed. Only about 9,000 cars produced before 1982 shutdown. Without a time-traveling teenager and a wacky scientist, just another failure. Instead, a pop culture icon and a legendary automotive failure. Hitting the halfway point at number 5 is a device that was supposed to change the world, to revolutionize how we build cities and how we live our lives. It was known only by the codename Ginger IT. The inventor Dean Kamen was a genius. He had big-name investors buzzing. Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos. Steve Jobs even said it would be as big as the PC. What was it? It was the Segway personal transporter. The secrecy around its launch in 2001 was intense. People speculated it was a hovercraft, a teleportation device, something truly world-changing. Then on Good Morning America, Dean Kamen rolled out on this two-wheeled, self-balancing electric scooter. It was definitely clever. You just lean forward to go, lean back to stop. The technology was brilliant. Kamen envisioned a future where cities were redesigned around these things, where walking would become obsolete for anything but the shortest distances. The hype was one thing, but the reality was another. First, there was the price. The first models cost $5,000. For that price, you could buy a decent used car. It wasn't an impulse buy. It was a serious investment for something that couldn't protect you from the rain and had a limited range. Who was this for exactly? The super rich who didn't feel like walking around their mansions? It was a tough sell. Then there was the social factor. Let's be honest, it looked a little dorky. Riding a Segway didn't exactly scream cool. It became the vehicle of choice for mall cops' city tour groups. It occupied this weird space where it was too slow for the street but too fast and bulky for the sidewalk. Cities didn't know how to classify it, and many ended up banning them from sidewalks altogether. The Segway never came close to its revolutionary goals. It didn't change cities. It didn't replace walking or cars. It sold only about 140,000 units in its entire two-decade lifespan before production was halted in 2020. It's a fantastic piece of engineering, no doubt, but it's a stark reminder that even the most brilliant technology won't succeed if it doesn't solve a real problem for people in a way that is affordable, practical, and let's face it, doesn't make them look silly. At number 4, we have a classic tale of a superior technology that, well, lost the war. This is the story of Betamax. In the mid-1970s, the idea of watching a movie at home whenever you wanted was brand new. It was honestly revolutionary. And Sony was first to the plate with their system called Betamax. It was launched in 1975. And by all technical accounts, it was the better format. The picture quality on Betamax tapes was noticeably better than its rival. The tapes themselves were smaller and more robust, and the machines were of higher quality. If you were a videophile back then, someone who really cared about image and sound, Betamax was the clear winner. Our number 3 spot is a real blast from the 90s past. Remember the 90s? Neon, flannel, clear drinks. This brings us to the king of the clear craze, Crystal Pepsi. In 1992, Pepsi decided that what the world really needed was a cola that was completely colorless. Why? The marketing logic was that clear equaled purity and health. They launched it with a massive marketing campaign to the tune of Van Halen's Right Now, showing all these pure, wholesome images. The tagline was, "You've never seen a taste like this." It was a huge novelty. When it first came out, people were super curious. A clear cola? What does that even taste like? Everyone had to try it. For the first year, sales were actually pretty good. It captured about 1% of the US soft drink market. It looked like Pepsi had a hit on its hands. But then, the novelty wore off, and people were left with the taste. And the taste was just a little bit off. Pepsi said it was the same as regular Pepsi, just without the caramel coloring. But most people disagreed. It had a slightly different, almost citrusy flavor that just didn't taste quite right. If you're drinking something that's supposed to be cola, your brain expects it to look and taste a certain way. A clear liquid that tasted almost like cola was just confusing. To make matters worse, Coca-Cola launched its own competitor, Tab Clear. Years later, a former Coke executive claimed that Tab Clear was designed from the beginning to be a failure. He called it a kamikaze mission. The idea was to launch this terrible-tasting clear diet soda to poison the well for the entire clear cola category. They wanted to create confusion and make consumers think that all clear colas, including Crystal Pepsi, were just weird diet drinks. Whether that's true or not, the clear craze died out almost as quickly as it began. Within a couple of years, Crystal Pepsi was gone from the shelves. People just decided they wanted their cola to be brown, thank you very much. It was a classic case of a marketing gimmick that couldn't make up for a product that people just didn't really want in the long run. Though, like many 90s failures, it's now a beloved piece of nostalgia. At number 2, we have a story that is not just a failure, but a true tragedy. We're talking about the Hindenburg. In the 1930s, long before jumbo jets, the most luxurious and futuristic way to travel across the ocean was on a giant airship, a Zeppelin. And the biggest, most magnificent airship ever built was the German Zeppelin LZ-129 Hindenburg. This thing was a monster. It was over 800 feet long, 3 times longer than a Boeing 747. Inside, it was the height of luxury. Private passenger cabins, a dining room with fine china, a lounge with a grand piano, a promenade deck with huge windows to look down on the world below. It was like a flying luxury hotel. It could cross the Atlantic in about 2.5 days, which was twice as fast as the fastest ocean liner. In 1936, it had a very successful season, carrying over 1,000 passengers safely across the ocean. It looked like the future of air travel. But the Hindenburg had a fatal flaw. The original designs called for it to be filled with helium, which is a safe, non-flammable gas. The problem was, the United States had a monopoly on the world's helium supply and, due to military concerns, had banned its export. So the German designers were forced to use the next best thing for lift hydrogen, and hydrogen is incredibly flammable. Everyone knew this was a risk, but they thought they could manage it. On May 6, 1937, the Hindenburg was finishing its first transatlantic flight of the season. It was arriving in Lakehurst, New Jersey, after a 3-day journey from Frankfurt. As it was attempting to land, a fire broke out. Because the entire ship was basically a giant balloon filled with explosive gas, it was engulfed in flames in seconds. The whole thing, this 800-foot symbol of technological pride, was destroyed in just over 30 seconds. The disaster was captured on film and in a famous emotional radio broadcast by Herbert Morrison, whose voice cracked as he cried, "Oh, the humanity! 36 people lost their lives." The shocking images and the broadcast were seen and heard around the world. In just 34 seconds, the public's faith in airship travel was shattered forever. The dream of the great Zeppelin passenger liners was over. It was a horrific end to an era and a terrifying reminder of the fine line between technological marvel and catastrophic failure. And at number 1, the most epic fail on our list, the poster child for an entire era of failure. We're talking about Pets.com. The late 1990s were a crazy time called the dot-com bubble. The internet was new, and investors were throwing insane amounts of money at any company with a .com in its name, even if it had no clear plan to actually make a profit. The idea was to get big fast and worry about profits later, and no company embodied this philosophy more than Pets.com. Their business model was simple. They would sell pet supplies online and ship them directly to your door. They had a massive advertising budget and a very memorable mascot, the Pets.com sock puppet. You couldn't escape this thing. The puppet had a record deal, a line of merchandise, and even a balloon in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. They spent millions on advertising, including a Super Bowl commercial in 2000. They were famous. The problem was, the business itself made no sense. They were selling big, heavy bags of dog food and cat litter, which are low-margin items, and trying to ship them across the country. The shipping costs were often more than the product itself. They were literally losing money on almost every single sale. They were selling a $10 bag of dog food for $10, but then spending $15 to ship it to the customer. It was a fundamentally broken business model. But in the crazy logic of the dot-com bubble, that didn't matter. All that mattered was growth and brand awareness. They raised over $80 million in their IPO in February 2000. Investors were so caught up in the hype that they ignored the fact that the company was a money-shredding machine. The company's own financial documents stated that they had earned about $600,000 in revenue while spending over $11 million on advertising. The math was just not there. The end came swiftly. The dot-com bubble burst in 2000, and investors suddenly started caring about profits again. The flow of easy money dried up. Pets.com, with its unsustainable business model, couldn't survive. Just 9 months after its big IPO, in November 2000, the company shut down for good. They burned through over $300 million in investment capital in less than 2 years. The sock puppet was out of a job. Pets.com became the ultimate symbol of the dot-com bust. a story of massive hype, a cute mascot, and a complete and total lack of a viable business plan.